There's a certain silence that only comes when you close your laptop at 2 a.m. That kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. You stare at the blue light on your desk, the unread emails, the congratulations post from someone you used to know, and you wonder, am I behind? That was where Ethan Miller, 29 years old, found himself one April night in his small rented house just outside of Benton, Kansas. A mechanical engineer by title, a people pleaser by habit, and lately a man losing his pulse for life. He had the job, the apartment, the stable income, and yet every morning felt like he was putting on a costume. Ethan grew up in a quiet Midwestern town surrounded by cornfields that hummed with cicadas in summer. His father, John Miller, was a retired firefighter turned woodworker. His mother taught Sunday school. Ethan had always been the smart one. When others fixed tractors, he fixed equations. When others talked about staying, he dreamed about leaving. And so he did. College in Chicago, internship at a big firm, a full-time job designing conveyor systems for factories across the Midwest. But after 6 years of that life, something in him started to erode. It wasn't burnout, it was emptiness. Meetings that meant nothing. Colleagues that spoke in KPI and Q3 but not in soul. And somewhere between the business trips and late nights, he realized he hadn't felt proud in years. One evening, after another day of good work that didn't feel good, he called his dad. "Dad, do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" There was a pause. Then his father said, "Son, sounds like you've been listening to everyone else's voice, but your own." That sentence lingered like the smell of wood dust, soft but impossible to forget. A few weeks later, Ethan drove home for a long weekend. The drive stretched across endless fields, gold, green, and empty. At the workshop behind his parents' farmhouse, his dad was sanding an old rocking chair. "Before you say anything," his father said with a grin, "I've got a little project for you." He handed Ethan a small piece of paper with 3 names and addresses. "Go talk to these people. Tell them you're my son, and ask them one question. What did success come to mean for you? You'll find something worth hearing." Ethan laughed. "Dad, what is this, some small-town scavenger hunt?" John only smiled. "You'll see. Just promise me you'll listen. Not just to them, to yourself." The first name was Daniel Cooper, a man who owned a small cattle ranch 15 miles west. Daniel had been one of John's oldest friends, once known as the luckiest farmer in the county. But as Ethan arrived, he saw weathered fences, an empty barn, and Daniel himself sitting on a porch with a cane and a sun hat. They talked for a while about nothing. Then Ethan asked the question, "What did success come to mean for you?" Daniel smiled like a man who'd rehearsed that question for years. "When I was your age, I thought success was yield per acre. Now, it's being able to breathe without hurry. I lost half my herd in a drought 5 years back. My marriage too. But the strange thing is, losing everything gave me the space to meet myself again." He pointed to a small garden patch by the porch. "That right there grows tomatoes. Not much money in tomatoes. But every morning when I water them, I feel alive. Success, Ethan, is when you stop measuring your worth with someone else's ruler." Ethan wrote that down in his notebook. For the first time in months, he felt something move inside him. Quiet recognition. Next was Linda Harper, owner of a small bakery in downtown Benton. Her shop smelled like cinnamon and early mornings. She was famous for her sourdough bread and for the story behind it. Once, Linda had been a high-powered accountant in Wichita. She quit after 20 years when a heart attack in her 40s reminded her that spreadsheets don't hug you back. "You want to know what success means now?" she said while shaping dough. "It's when a kid comes in and says, 'Miss Linda, this is the best cookie I've ever had.' I used to make numbers work. Now I make people smile. I guess I just changed currencies." Ethan asked if she ever regretted leaving the corporate life. "Sometimes," she said, "but then I remember the look on my daughter's face when I'm home for dinner every night." The last name on the list was Professor Adrian Wells, a retired robotics expert who had once been Ethan's father's classmate. Adrian lived alone in a house cluttered with books and half-built inventions. He had been at the top of his class, the kid everyone thought would change the world. And he did, for a while. He built systems used in factories nationwide, some of which Ethan's own company still used. But the man Ethan met looked tired, eyes dim behind thick glasses. "You're John Miller's boy, huh? Your dad, he always had dirt under his nails. I envied that. I had degrees, titles, but no joy." Adrian chuckled softly. "I chased brilliance so hard that I forgot to be kind. When you're young, success feels like being seen. When you're older, success is being at peace with what you see in the mirror." Before Ethan left, Adrian gave him a small wooden gear, something his father had carved for him in high school. "Your dad made this when he ranked dead last in shop class. Funny, right? Guess who built the company that still makes my robot arms today? Him." Ethan froze. His father, the man with the golden hands, had once been the least likely to succeed. Driving back home, Ethan couldn't shake the stories. Each person had lived a different version of success, but all pointed to one truth. The world doesn't hand you meaning, you build it. When he got home, he found his dad in the barn, fixing a broken fence rail. The sun was setting behind him, painting everything in amber. Ethan handed him the notebook filled with notes and quotes. "You really set me up, didn't you?" John laughed. "Maybe. Did you find what you were looking for?" Ethan paused. "I don't know yet, but I know I'm tired of pretending." His father set down the hammer. "Son, I broke my back in that fire 20 years ago. Couldn't climb ladders after that. People called me washed up. That's when I started building furniture, just to keep my hands busy. And look around. Now it's a full shop. Life doesn't end when one door closes. It just waits for you to start carving a new one." Ethan stayed longer than planned. Days became weeks. He helped his dad restore an old barn table. At night, he journaled. One evening, while sanding the tabletop, Ethan felt something he hadn't in years. Flow. That deep, wordless concentration where hours disappear. That night, he wrote, "I thought I was chasing stability, but all I ever wanted was meaning." Months later, Ethan quit his job in Chicago. He returned home and started a small workshop, combining engineering precision with woodworking. He built custom furniture using sustainable materials and local designs. He called the shop Golden Grain Works, named after the wheat fields he'd once dreamed of escaping. At first, business was slow. He doubted himself. But one afternoon, a young couple came in looking for a baby crib. When they picked up the finished piece, the husband said, "You can tell this was made by someone who cares." Ethan smiled. For the first time in a decade, he felt the weight in his chest lift. A year later, Ethan recorded a short message for his website. "If you're watching this, maybe you're where I was. Successful on paper, but hollow inside. I learned that education, degrees, job titles, they're not life's destination. They're just tools to help you find what feels like home. My dad once told me, you can build many things, son, but the most important thing you'll ever build is yourself. So don't chase someone else's blueprint. Listen for the sound of your own hammer. One day it'll make music." As the camera faded out, you could hear the quiet rhythm of sanding wood. Steady, grounded, peaceful. At the edge of Benton, there's a sign that reads, "Golden Grain Works, crafted by hand, built by heart." Inside, Ethan works beside his father, laughing, sawdust floating in sunbeams. Outside, the fields sway gently, whispering as if the earth itself is proud. And somewhere between the hum of tools and the smell of oak, Ethan finally understands, you don't need to chase someone else's dream. You just need the courage to come home to yours.